Salvin's Psychic Solutions podcast with America's original radio psychic, Dr. Linda Salvin, offering up her always fascinating blend of psychic psychology, clairvoyant insights, and expert guests and alternative healing methods. So pull up a chair and get ready for a visit with the one and only Dr. Linda. And now, live from Los Angeles, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Linda Salvin.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Psychic Solutions Podcast. I am Dr. Linda Salvin. I got an MPH, PhD. I'm not an MD. I am a metaphysician, and I've been in radio over 30 years. And a lot of you that have been following me know where to find me at drlindaradio.com, lindasalvin.com, on YouTube, and 100 other stations, including iTunes, iHeart, and God knows where, because it's got 100 platforms up there. So, of course, you'll download later. And if you want to contact the guest or me, all that information will be provided at the end of the show. Today is an interesting topic because it hits home with me. We've got an animal communicator and somebody that loves plant medicine. And you know how I am with the herbal world. So without any wasting of time, I'm going to bring on Nick Musica, and he's in San Diego, California. I'm in Los Angeles. Hi, Nick. Thank you for joining the show and coming on to share your experience with others. And there's so much to talk about. I don't know. Should we start with Chucky the cat? Where do you want to start? Give us a little background about who you are and how this opened. I know a psychic told you this would happen.
Yeah.
You told me I'd be a psychic. I said I'm not a psychic, and here I am known around the world. But you never know what a psychic's going to say. What happened to you? Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Linda. Yeah.
Sure.
So it was a little more than a year ago, or my wife and I just randomly, I use that in quotes, randomly went to a psychic fair here in Carlsbad where we live, and I saw a young lady sitting down. She was a psychic medium, and mediums were not my thing. It just wasn't in my belief system.
Of course not. You're probably too skeptical.
Yeah. Right.
Of course, most people are.
100%. And I sat down in the first 30, 60 seconds. My cat, Henry, who passed when he was 22, about 20 years ago, came through. And she said, the message is you did too much. And so now I'm reflecting on the last 2 years we spent together on the planet, where I'm taking him back and forth to the vet, the blood work, checking the food, like all the things you do to make it.
Let them go. I know. I've had 5 cats, 5 dogs, 5 birds. I lost a dog 2 years ago. Yeah, I get it. And a lot of people, if they're listening, get it. We don't want to let them go, and we try to save them. We don't have to.
We don't. Right. And so the message you did too much was spot on. Right. And as I'm contemplating what's happening here, because it's my first time with a medium, and I'm having a conversation with my dead cat. She continues and she says,
yeah,
right. This is the first time for me. She continues and she says, they're now showing me Dr. Doolittle. They're showing me that you can talk to animals and it's going to be easy for you. And, I never heard anything more truthful in my life, and I couldn't tell you why I felt that way. But those were my feelings.
Because you got a spiritual hit, and you probably got goosebumps, and something ran right through your soul as if it was confirmation, like you needed to hear it and you didn't know it, and then it opened you up. That's what happens.
That was pretty much it. Yeah, for sure.
I've been doing this over 40 years. I don't know if you know my background, but I'm not new to this. So I understand when people come on. I've already been there, done that, and I understand it. Go on.
Yeah. And so I go home and I meditate, do my normal meditation, and I tune into my living cat, Chucky. And
Chucky's in love. I knew Chuck. Go ahead.
A big male cat, and immediately I see this bright light, the type of light you would associate with like spirit guides and angels, and I think absolutely not, right? This is not my cat. He shits in a box. He poops in a box, and sometimes on the floor, right? It is not him. It's certainly not a higher level being. So I call her up and I say, this is not working. It certainly is not easy. And she says, well, you're expecting things to show up in a very specific way. And that is just not how this works. So just be open to the channel that you create. What comes through is what comes through. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Hi, Charlotte. We see you. If you want to call in and join Nick and me, I'd love it, because Charlotte, who just popped up to say hi, is also a paranormal specialist. She co-hosts my show with me a lot. She'll be on tomorrow. But call in a few minutes, Charlotte, and join this conversation, because it's right up our alley. Go on, Nick.
Fantastic. So I decided to give it a second shot when she says, you just need to be open to things. Okay. So I buy animal communication books. I was certainly surprised how many there are out there. And I bought a couple sessions with animal communicators to see really, like, how does this thing, what does it look like? How does it sound? Like, what is this all about? And as I'm about to get up from my living room table to go to one of these animal communication sessions that I've booked for Zoom, I get this flash of Return of the Jedi. And what I see is I see the ghost of Obi-Wan and the ghost of Yoda. And I know what I'm being shown is this student-teacher relationship. And I know that it's coming from Chucky. And I
And
know
you've never
also,
had this ever before. This was all brand new to you.
well, for years prior to this, seeing things, hearing things, feeling things, yes, but not in the context of animals. Like it just wasn't a thing. So I get this quick snapshot, and I know it's coming from him. And I get on the line with the animal communicator, and we validate why I'm there. And then she tunes in. She says, "Do you know who he is to you?" I go, "Yeah, I do." And here's what he showed me, which validated that when I first tuned into him, that bright light, that was him. And so he's turned to be a wonderful teacher. He gives me a
Yeah,
lot of
he's a mentor.
corrections.
Yeah, he's your
Yeah,
guide. He speaks
that's
through.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's amazing.
I have Jeff Picaro from Toto who channels through me. He died in 1992. I went to high school with him, never met him, but he became huge in my life. I know a lot of musicians. Charlotte and other people out there who are listening, the call-in number is 561-623-9421. Charlotte, pick up the phone. We'll get you on with Nick and me. 561-623-9421. We all get certain guides or mentors or spirits. Sometimes it's a relative, sometimes it's an ancestor from 8 generations past. That's a whole nother show. I don't want to take up your time talking about what I already know and what I teach. But metaphysics and spirituality is not just limited. It's endless. And if your gift is to help with the animals, I know dolphins and horses and cats. Do you do fish?
Yep.
I mean, talk about, have you actually spoken to a dolphin or ridden with the dolphins or swam with the dolphins?
Funny question. Yeah, yes, all that, all the above. Yeah. So we were in Mexico in July. And, we haven't been out of the house in 3 years at this point. And so we're being kids in candy store, my wife and I in Cabo.
Oh, because of lockdown.
That's right. Yeah. So it's the first time we really get out of the house after lockdown, right? Give or take. And we go to Mexico and we just want to have fun. And so one of the things that you can do there in Cabo is swim with the dolphins, go for a dolphin ride. And I have mixed reaction to animals in cages. Like I've never liked it. And I'm having this mixed reaction. And after all is said and done, we decide to go. And if you can imagine SeaWorld, they have the pool and they have this little ledge where the dolphins go up and they flip their tail up and everyone claps and the trainer gives them a fish. Well, there's a similar ledge at this establishment that we went to. And on this ledge, there's the dolphin in the middle, and then there's 3 of us on the left and 3 of us on the right, and the trainer at the head. And I'm down the right-hand side towards the tail. Her name is Liz the dolphin. And I thought, well, let me give it a shot. Let's just see what happens. And so I try to tune into Liz and I feel her show up. And I got this overwhelming feeling of sad. And I thought, well, because you live in a tank, right? Which was my narrative. Well, but that was my narrative. It wasn't her narrative. And so
did she lose a baby?
Close. So we'll get to that. Yeah, interesting. So
so
I tuned into it. And when I asked why about the sad, she said family, and that was all I got. So afterwards, I went to the trainers and said, I have a question for you. Like, I'm really curious about Liz. What's going on? Mom, dad, siblings, anything like that? And they said, well, dad's off the planet. It's not dad. What about mom and siblings? Oh yeah, they're here. Mom's here, and so is her sister. Oh, where are they? They're in the adjacent tank. Well, why are they there? Right. Why are they there? Well, because when the mom had the second baby, Liz still wanted attention from mom and she was causing problems. So we separated Liz from mom and the new baby, and they're in the adjacent tank. Well, how long have they been there? 3 years. How old is Liz? 5. Oh, so you took mom and sibling away when Liz was 2. Well, that would explain family and sad. Okay. Thanks for validating.
Her baby. She lost her baby.
Yeah. Yeah. So
did they reunite them in the tanks? Did the park do any?
No.
They don't believe that living things, whether it's a plant, a dog, a cat, a dolphin, a fish, are sentient.
Yeah.
How much animal abuse do we see? Don't get me started on the elephants and the camels and the dogs and the cats and the strays it's horrible. And the chains and the freezing weather. I mean, people just don't know that these are living things. You don't want the dog or cat, then they're up for being euthanized. It kills me. I can't rescue all of them. I wish I could, but you can't. You have a hard job, especially if you have a client who's down the street or across the world and cat just died or the cat is sick or the dog is this or the horse is not eating. And it's your job to communicate the message as to what that animal is suffering with or wanting to say or how to express,
Yeah, it's
so they can
true.
get the help or the love it needs. And that's a hard responsibility. It's like when I have to deliver a negative message, I try not to, but sometimes it comes through and it's not always, Mary Poppins over here or over there. It's hard and it hurts. And then we, as the readers or the conduit, we suffer as much as they do because we take in the pain to communicate it. It's not easy. And a lot of people don't understand the burden behind this kind of work on a metaphysical level. Were you sensitive as a kid? Did you have premonitions? Did you
Yeah,
write? What was your first experience? Like when you're 5 or 6, you became aware of something?
yeah, not that young. It was, I mean, I was always interested in the topic, and for whatever that was worth. And my dad introduced me to Edgar Casey when I was like 17, so that was interesting just to see this new reality of what showed up in
Yeah.
these books.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then when I was like 18,
Hold on. For
19,
those that don't know who Edgar Casey is, he's been
mm,
touted as the sleeping prophet, and he was one of the biggest prophets in our time next to, well, Nostradamus, who was in the 1500s, 1600s, and wrote all the quadrants of what we're experiencing in today's life. But Edgar Casey would channel in his sleep, and his wife and others would take notes of and predict health cures or predictions on the planet. And so if you were introduced to his work at a young age, then it gave you a head start on the metaphysics. Go on.
yeah. Super cool stuff. And so I think my first psychic experience was going to a psychic age 16 or 17, whatever it was. I remember wanting to get my license. That was going to be the first things that I did. And so I did that. And I remember Jim, this psychic, saying, in response to I don't understand why I always feel stoned walking out of here. And his response was, well, because you're going deep in the meditation. And I said, oh yeah, okay, sure. Without understanding whatever that meant. Like I just didn't know at the time, right?
You were in the vibe of the energy and you were
Yeah,
absorbing it, and it is intoxicating and you're kind of
totally.
woozy. Yeah, go
Totally.
on.
Yeah.
Welcome to
And
the
and
world of
so now,
spirit.
right. And so now having those experiences, I go, oh, and now it's obvious, but back then it was just, starting to form. But the thing that was consistent for me for years was clairvoyant dreams. I didn't know what they were. I didn't know the label. Um,
Were they
but
clairvoyant or were they prophecy? Because a lot of times people confuse the two. You might see something, but it's actually prophecy in your dream state where you're beginning to see what could be coming, and you get the picture or the message, and then it happens. So a lot of times it's straight state
so
prophecy, and it's
yeah,
also
so
astral projection. Huh?
I'll describe it, and you can give it your own label. Yeah. So it's almost like random dog on random corner in random city is what you dream of, and then the next day, week, or month, year, whatever it may be
You
later,
see
you
the
actually
dog.
that thing plays out. Yeah. So it's nothing really significant, but it
Oh,
is.
yes, it is, especially to you being the receiver and then being led to that. Did you go rescue the dog, talk to the dog, or did you have
No,
to
no,
have
no. So,
interact?
so no. Like it was never like don't get on the plane, right? It was never nothing. It was never anything significant like that. But it was sort of snapshots of everyday life, and that happened for a long time. Um, and then I found plant medicine in 2017, and I did
Mm,
I did my fair share of psychedelic
mhm.
experimentation when I was younger, right? So the chemicals weren't intimidating or new to me, but the context certainly was. And having San Pedro for the first time, that was amazing. That just whatever was open just blew it all open. And that it just wasn't going back, right? Like you can't after you see
Once you
things and hear
walk
things.
through these doors of the spiritual world or the medicinal world or
Yeah,
the alternate universe that's not just cognitive, academic, and professional per se with a suit and tie and you're at the job. No. You open up that frequency within yourself
yeah.
and you go from mind, body, spirit, it's a whole nother world. You cannot close that door. You can't get out. You can't.
Mm-mm.
You
No,
can
yeah,
shift.
it's the difference between reading reports. Reports say people see things and hear things, and I read it and I go, oh, that's adorable. So you've never done this before, right? Like if you're reporting on it, you have never had the experience
Experienced it.
yourself.
No, that's true. It's
Yeah,
like people go, I can't stand psychics. I don't believe in psychics. Have you ever been to a psychic? No. Then how do you know unless you've had a reading?
right, right,
Or it's like,
right.
yeah, I understand PTSD. Oh, you do? Have you been in a plane crash? No. Then you don't know what I go through when I get on a plane every
Yeah,
three
right,
months. They don't get
right.
it. They don't know why I panic. It doesn't go away after 43 years of being in a traumatic situation. But you learn to live with it. And the spiritual premonitions that we get
Mm,
scare people. a lot of people you probably intimidate, Nick. You say something, then like, oh, how did he know that? Or what do you mean by that? Then they want to know more. Or if you touch on it like a feather, just enough to give them a little hint. Well, what else do you know? What else can you tell me? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's sort of a trip when people sign up and they want to hear from their animals, and they're sort of thinking, tell me about Fluffy and the ball, right? Like that's sort
So
of
you'll
what they
talk to the dogs and the cats from those that have that are already deceased on the other side. You're channeling, or do you usually do the animals that are living?
It's both living and
Okay.
past. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll typically tune into them beforehand on a Thursday, get the information, take the notes, open up the space with the human on Fridays, invite the animals in. Sometimes they show up, sometimes they don't show
Yeah.
up. Sometimes they're
Yeah.
there and they're quiet. Sometimes they give more information. No, it really is a big fat depends. Um, but the theme that typically shows up is the human really wants to know about the furry thing they see running around, right? Like
Oh, when
that's
they have the vision and they see the ghost or the shadow, and it's really the
uh
cat or the dog in ghost. Yeah. Do they freak
yeah,
out, or are they
yeah.
getting the
Well,
confirmation?
yeah, well, they I think it's a surprise to a lot of people. So I'll give an example of one young lady who showed up and she said, my dog is biting people in their ankles. I want can you get this to stop? Well, I don't know. Let me see. Let's see. Right. They have their own choices too, the critters. So I'll have the conversation. So I tune into the little chihuahua, and the chihuahua says, "You got to ask her about her job." And I said, "Well, why am I asking her about her job? Because that's what has to change." Okay. So we get on the line with the human, and she says, "So what do you know about inviting people?" I'm like, "Well, not much, but let's talk
But
about your let's talk about your job." Right. And so at the end of it, and this is one of the other themes, is animals frequently will show up with mirroring modeling behavior. Like if you ever heard
Mhm.
someone say, "Oh my God, my dog is so lazy, he sits on the couch with me all day long as I play video games." Oh, your
Gee.
dog's lazy. Right, 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 right. Your dog's a lazy one. I'm with you. Sure,
No,
sure.
I've been told
Y-
that too. I've had
Yeah.
2 dogs of my own besides those I grew up with. One was a German short-haired pointer mixed with a whippet. I only had her
Mm,
3.5 years because her back gave out and I had to put her down, and that was in '06. And then I had another dog who I lost 2 years ago that was half Papillon and half, Dachshund. So she was a fluffy little fat thing. But they never barked. They were always calm. They were very protective, and people had told me that the animals take on the personality of their
yeah,
owners. If you're aggressive and yelling and the kids are playing and there's no
that's
peace,
right.
they're gonna be agitated and out.
That's right.
But if they're just hanging out in a calm, more or less calm situation, or when I would yell and blow up, they'd freak out because they weren't used to the external, noise. But most of the time, like my neighbor said, "I never heard your dog bark," and this and the neighbors down the street whose dog doesn't shut up and yelps all the time is either in pain or needs help or is trying to say
Yes,
something.
that's right.
And most people don't pay attention. Do you comfort people? Do you help their behavior change? Do you do any of the healing with that, or you just give the messages?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say there's two forms of that. One is when you simply show up and say your dog is reflecting your behavior, right? Why is your dog biting someone? Let's talk about your job and your feelings about your job, and then they're reflected in the dog because they're not warm and fuzzy feelings. They're the opposite of that, and so your dog is reflecting those non-warm and fuzzy feelings, the feelings of anger, resentment, whatever they are, however they were categorized. So that typically shows up. Um, that shows up quite a bit. The other thing that shows up sometimes is, and this happened just I guess it was last week. I was talking to a woman about her dog, and I'm tuning in beforehand, and I'm going through the activation, and when I get to the heart, I feel the heart like just way over on the left hand side, which is not how I how I feel myself. So it's a reflection of what I'm about to get into. And as we go through the conversation, I get the hit of like I'm not fully into my job at some point because of the pain associated with it. And so the messaging that I gave this young lady was like you need to be entirely in this in your job. You can't be 99% in your job. And I know that it's painful when you don't get the outcome. But someone else could be in the same job 50%, and they would be okay with the outcome, be it positive or negative. You cannot do that. Like you need to be 100% in because that 1% is going to eat at you, so that your whole heart has to be in it. And so that's how
What
that.
kind of work was this person doing that the dog wanted her to shift gears with? What was she doing?
Yeah, yeah. Animal care,
Kind of,
right? And there's mixed reactions when an animal goes into a house, or mixed outcomes, right? So it's better or worse. It's what it is. They have a new home, but now the situation is what it is. So she felt mixed in terms of not getting the ideal outcome for the critters.
I have things I could say on top of it. It's not about my psychic stuff on her issues, but she's got a lot to learn. She does. She's trying to do good, but there's still a block around her. How did your wife feel when she discovered with you that you were gifted? Did it bother her? Was she a little alarmed? Was she skeptical, or was she all like your cheerleader? Because a lot of
She
people have.
Yeah, yes, I would go with surprised. Yeah. Um, I mean, no one really expects to go anywhere, including a psychic fair, and walk out with someone saying,
Hey,
so
guess what?
right, yeah, so blah blah blah, Dr. Doolittle, blah blah blah, talk to animals, right? Like that was a surprise. So then things that I would start to communicate to my wife were even more surprising. Here's what I heard the dolphin say. Here's what I heard the cat say. Here's what
What
happens with
does
the
a
coyote.
dolphin say? Tell me about the dolphins. Then we'll go back to your wife. Tell me about the dolphins. I've swam with them in Lahaina when Lahaina was Lahaina, but
It was trippy. So Liz, the dolphin in Mexico, it was a little frustrating afterwards, getting that validation. And so
oh, the
when we were
baby.
when we went back to the hotel, I was waking up at 5 in the morning just because the sun was coming up, and you're on this vacation schedule. It does strange things to the body. I'm waking up at 5 o'clock. So I think it was the day after. I thought, well, let me see if I can change the situation. Let me see if there's something more I can do here, because it felt like a little bit of a parlor trick. I know a thing, and now we're done. So I did my meditation. I tuned in. I found Liz, and the quick conversation I had with her was, like you can be an ambassador between people and animals. They get to have a different appreciation because of the time they spend with you, and that can be very purposeful. And when I said, however you want to phrase it, when I communicated the word purpose, I felt what I can only describe as a reverse waterfall of energy just shooting up. So it went from like completely flat to, oh my goodness, this is what dolphin energy feels like. Now I'm with you. And
Did Liz
go ahead.
ever communicate like a dislike for one of the trainers that was a little rough or abusive?
No.
Tune into her again, not now, but later, and see what you get. There's a female that does not treat her right.
Mm,
Go on.
yeah. Yep. So that
Mhm.
was, so I went from, experiencing Liz as an unhappy dolphin because of family, to feeling how she felt when there was a purpose tied to her, which I think we can all relate to. Without purpose, what are we doing? Sort of muddling along, trying to figure things out without having anything to figure out. And then there was one day that I was surfing here in Carlsbad, and just a ton of energy showed up, and I just didn't know what it was all about. And about a second later, I see this pod of dolphin that,
Oh my, I just got chills. I love that. And they were
yeah,
all coming out.
there,
That's
yeah,
how
yeah.
metaphysics started, was with Dr. Carl Jung, the father of metaphysics, who
Hmm.
studied under Freud, because when he was on a train, I don't know, Switzerland, wherever he was, but he saw the dolphins coming out and sink. And that's where he started to put together the universal synchronicity of how it all works, as to why did they all jump at the same time? Why were they all in these pods? And then the term synchronicity became more and more valid. And then it led
Interesting.
into what his work was as a psychiatrist and a metaphysician, going into Casey and then coming into modern times. It's all part of that history. So the dolphins, you might want to research going back to Freud, to Jung,
Yeah,
about the dolphins, and put it all together for your work, and it'll
yeah,
blow your mind and give you even more of a connection. I think
yeah. I
it's great.
appreciate that. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
let's go
super
back to your
cool.
wife, though. I'm going to go back
Yeah.
to your wife and the plants, because there's so much. We only have 45 minutes. I can do 3 shows with you. I didn't realize it'd be so spectacular. Some people, I hate to say it, but I'll watch the clock like, oh my God, when is this over with you? It's like, I got to do 3 more broadcasts, because I want to put it all together for people to appreciate you. And we'll go to where they can contact you in a few moments.
Yeah,
But
yep.
go back to the plants, the medicinal aspects? Do you talk to the plants, or is it how the plants heal you when you got certain herbs? Lavender relaxes you, and ginger supposedly detoxes you, or there's different
Yeah.
plants that have medicinal properties that we know, even though they out there want to put a stop to it because
Yes.
there's no money for them, but there's
Yep. Yep.
health for us. So I got to be careful about what you say. But there are
Yep.
people that believe, and I certainly am one. How did
Yeah.
you discover the magic of plants?
Yeah. I discovered, and it's really the magic of a plant, of a cactus, San Pedro, Wachuma, however you want to call it, psychedelic cactus. And the way I discovered it was, it goes back to one of those non-coincidences that showed up. A buddy of mine calls me up. He calls me up like on a Wednesday or Thursday, and he says, "You're coming with me on Saturday, right?" And I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." And he said, "Well, you agreed that if my wife couldn't make it, that you would show up to the event." What event? The San Pedro event. I don't know what that is. And the more he explained it to me, the more I thought this is just sounding less interesting. It's all
Are
day.
they
It's
with
in
the tea, or are they you actually eat it? Because there's different
yeah, yeah.
plants I know, and I can't remember all the names, but it's definitely a trip for what? Are you in a tent? Are you doing the outside? Are
Yeah,
you
yeah, so it's for folks not for listening who haven't been involved in something like this. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's a plant ceremony. It's a sacred ceremony. And so you will have your intention in the beginning of the ceremony with 10 to 30 people, depending on who's there. Um, the way that this is served, the cactus is dried. I imagine this is how it goes down. It's dried. It's turned into a powder form. It then goes into a cup, and water goes into it, and you stir it up as quickly as you possibly can, because what the cactus wants to do chemically is sort of come back together, which makes it like a terrible gummy bear, right? Like, and you do not want to eat it. Like, you don't even want to drink it when you can drink it. Never mind have it turn. It's not the most flattering flavor. It's just pretty awful. But the results are wonderful, and the relationship you can connect with this plant is wonderful. And
How
so,
long is the trip, Nick? Is it a couple of
yeah,
hours a day, and is it real like acid and mescaline with all the colors and the images and the voices? And
yeah,
I've done it too, but and
yeah,
I've done ketamine, so I understand the different aspects of what goes on psychotropically. But what happens when you drink or eat or
yeah.
swallow,
It
ingest this?
it takes about an hour to kick in. And when it's sort of like if you were at the bar with friends and you're having a couple drinks and you just never get up at the end of 2 hours sitting there and drinking, feeling fine, to get up to go to the bathroom, you go, "Oh boy, like I really been
It
sitting here for a
hits.
while," right? It hits. So
Yeah.
when you get up to go find your spot to hunker down, you go, "Oh my goodness, like the floor's feeling a little light." It's like you feel a little different. And then you find your spot. And I think there's two ways to think about how much time it takes. I think there's about 5 hours where there's a ramp up, there's a peak, and then there's a cool
Mhm,
down.
mhm, mhm.
I like to stay under a sheet for about 8 hours. Like, once that energy kicks in, I'm there for the messaging and just to be in the energy.
So
And
you're tripping and you're hearing things, you're
yeah,
analyzing your life or your events, or you're getting insight for the future, and you're
yeah,
going back into, your mother and father, or your wife and your marriage and your career.
yeah,
It's a very insightful experience.
yes, it is.
Okay, it gets deep, and sometimes it can be scary. Now, are they monitored by one or two people that watches everybody in case it's quote a bad
That's
trip
right.
or people freak out?
That's right. Yeah, there's some folks who have hard times for sure. Yeah, be it emotionally or physically throwing up. I mean, I didn't throw up for a long time, and now I have. And while it's awful, I mean, there's nothing enjoyable, and it's also not called throwing up. It's called purging, energetic purging. Right? You're getting the
Mm,
garbage out of you, and that's true.
mhm.
Um, and it's not pleasant, but afterwards you feel so much better. You feel so much better about
It's a
just
detox.
everything.
It's a
Yes.
form of detox.
Absolutely. Shedding what doesn't need to belong. It's
Right.
really quite
That's
wonderful.
what puking is. And it may be from a bad food item. It could be from whatever triggers it. But yes, we're releasing emotion. We're releasing toxicity. We're releasing
Mm.
something we
Mhm.
no longer need. But especially if it was triggered by the plant or the San Pedro, and it's emotional and it's spiritual. So you're letting go of the negative while you're bringing in the spiritual, and you start to integrate on a new level. How many
That's
times have you experienced it?
San Pedro?
Mhm.
Yeah, we'll go with 10 times at this point. Yeah.
And each time do you go to a higher level or go deeper or find something new, or just certain things have an agenda that repeat? Because I know what it's like, but the listener doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it feels like more and more expansion every time I go. And there does, at least, and again, just for me, the the first time that I puked, um, the intention was, let's get rid of anything that's in the way of communicating with animals. Like, let's get on the path.
I
Let's do
was just
this.
going to ask, how did it help your work? Come on.
Yeah, and so, the wish was like, let's remove the blocks, and then and then I'm on the ground doing what I, puking, purging, and then things really did start to open up from there. And the last time I purged as well, and so I'm thinking every time there's a purge associated with there's a new up leveling that happens with there's something more that opens up, at least for me, with the puking. It's very productive.
Does your friend still participate like you do, or did he kind of back out after one or two trips or experiences, or and open the door for you? What happened with him?
Yeah, he's still involved. I think I'm a little more on the
Advanced.
clock with it on the clock with it than he is. Yeah, I go every 6 to 12 months. I do this every
I think
6 to
it's
12
great.
months.
I
I
think it's
love it.
great. Does your wife do it too?
She does not. Mm-mm.
She's scared. If
Mm.
the two of you in one house had that kind of energy, oh my God, you guys would be out of Carlsbad and somewhere in China. I mean, who knows where that energy would go? Who knows? What other plants do you ascribe to, talk to, ingest, drink, whatever? Or
Yeah, my relationship with plants are probably fairly normal compared to everyone else's, right? I would say San Pedro's the exception. I've tried mushrooms, psychedelic mushrooms. I just don't have the connection that a lot of people talk about. It just doesn't work for me.
everybody's
Um,
different.
yep. And I'll say this with the plants. I mean, this was years ago. This was when things were active before the animals, before the San Pedro even, I think. Is I was out on this grassy knoll doing yoga, and it was on the beach. And afterwards, you're finished, and everyone's wrapping up, and you're just sitting on your mat looking at the ground. I was sitting on the mat looking at the ground, and I noticed this one little blade of grass, just like whipping around. It appeared to be whipping around,
Mhm.
and I thought, that's amazing. It's amazing how the wind is hitting this one piece of grass. Like, that is,
And you focused on it
like, how
because
does
you were
that even
loaded.
happen? Right?
Because you were
How,
loaded.
yeah, you're right.
Awake, awake. Go on. I
Uh,
love
ho-
that.
And so finally, I realized, well, it's impossible for the wind to hit one piece of grass. It just doesn't work that way. Also, it's impossible for the wind to hit one piece of grass when there's literally no wind, right? And so, like, so that little, it was the energy of a piece of grass that I was, for whatever reason, that showed up. And what used to happen with San Pedro now happens all the time with the trees out in the world. But so when San Pedro would start to hit, like, I would get this expansion and collapse of trees. It looks like a strong wind is blowing them all over the place, and
Mhm.
it's not.
That's the
It's
drug,
just,
that's the intoxication, that's the
yeah, it's the
what I
energy you're
get that.
saying. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
but
and
that's also
so
inside of you, and you keep elevating to a higher level, so every time you
right,
trip or, whatever you wanna call it, you're
yes,
ready, and you can't wait to see what the next show is gonna be, and your energy's gone higher, and
that's
as
right.
you become more aware, you see more, bring it in, and other people going, "What's he doing? What's he looking at?
Yeah,
I don't see
that's
that,"
right.
and they're like, "What's going on with Nick?" People, if you're
Yeah,
just joining the show, my name's Dr. Linda Salvin. My guest today is Nick Mizuka. Is that how you say it, Mizuka?
Musica.
Musica, like in music. Okay.
Yep.
Sorry. People always mispronounce my name too, but
All good.
Nick has a gift as an animal communicator. So we're talking about talking to cats and dogs and dolphins and horses, and then we're talking about tripping on psychedelic plants. So if you have questions and you yourself would like to talk to Nick on your own, how can they reach you?
You can go to nickmusica.com. There's a form there you can fill out if you want to schedule a animal communication session. You can do it right there.
I just may do that, or maybe I'll trade you a show for my dog. We don't know. There's ways to blend our gifts because we both have it, and it's just, I've got what you need and you've got what I need, and somehow it all comes together.
Yeah.
Did you write a book? Are you writing a book? Because there's a book coming about all this. I think you're channeling, or even when you started growing and when you were a teenager, and your experiences need to be documented. What are you doing about that?
Yeah, I'm loosely documenting it now. What I'm playing with right now is a lot of the things we've talked about and just documenting the path. I think it's important for people to understand there's a before and there's an after for
Mhm.
folks. And while things showed up for me with the
Well,
clairvoyant
don't forget the during. It's the growth and the expansion. It's kinda like
yeah.
the initiation. Yeah.
Yeah. But like there's people who show up now that I've come out and said, I've been living snippets of dreams, cactus, animals, and now I'm getting folks showing up to my door saying, "Well, I've had this weird thing happening to me. Okay, tell me
Yeah.
about it." Right. And
Mhm.
so I've made it okay for other people to talk about
Share
it,
their
which is
experience. That's your gift.
totally
But do you ever
it's
think back
yeah.
or try to see the correlation that you have, Native American energy from a past life, which is why you're gravitating towards the animals and the plants, as opposed to just humans or just, businesses or worldwide events like war and all that. You were earthbound. You are Native American in past lives. I think you got 3 of them. What's your cultural background? Do you have a passion with the Native American
I ha
ideology?
I have a strong curiosity of it. And
Mhm.
I
Part
I
of you.
bought yeah, I bought a book because I'm trying to figure out where this came from, right? So I'm trying to
Past
like
lives, your
fair
soul.
enough. And then culturally, where does it come from, right? So is it from India? Is it Native American? Where does this? Where can I learn more about it and have it resonate with me? So I'm picking up semi-random books to try to understand
I
where
think you
where is
just need
it.
a past life regression. You don't need to you're not gonna find all of it in a book. You can read 1,000 books and maybe 1 or 2 pages or chapters and
That's
go, "Oh, I
right.
identified this and identified that." I think if you find a
Yep.
really good regressionist, and you gotta be careful, and I tell people this all the time, there are people that think they're regressionists, and then there's people that are really truly regressionists. I had regressions in the 82, I think, after the plane crash when I was starting to get into all this stuff.
Hmm.
But you gotta be prepared. It's like you prepare the day before you deliver the message. I go through that when I have a channeling session. I give it a couple of days before I get everything, and then I communicate the message. But with your situation, I think if you when you're with the right regressionist, it can take 3 or 4 days just to prepare you for the regression, because a lot of people use like a staircase going down from when we are here to whenever you were born and then breaking through that door to the year before. Like if I was born in 54, what they took me through from the 80s to 54 and then going past into 53 all the way to 1600s, 1100s, Jesus
Yeah.
getting crucified. I saw it all. But you got
Hmm.
to be prepared, whether it's an elevator shaft, a staircase, the right regressionist will prepare you for the shock. It is a shock to break through what we know mentally in our own subconscious. You've already broken through some of those barriers with the work you've done and the elements you've ingested and the insights you've got. You would be ready to embrace what happens because you see clairvoyantly, you would see
Hmm.
your wife, you might even see that Liz might have been, a cat. And she
Hmm.
came back as a dolphin. As to why you get in touch with all of these, you would probably find your parents, you would find a lot of answers in a different light through the regression, more so than a book. I think I can't recommend anybody now because I don't know anybody these days that do that kind of
Yeah.
work. But if you research it properly and you go for a couple of months and really dig, because you're used to digging in your soul, you're ready to open that next door. But remember in the movie Billy Jack, I watched it when I was a teenager. His mentor, his Indian guide, would sit with him at the fire one night because he was on this search, spiritual search to dig, 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 dig. And then the mentor says, the Indian says, be careful. Don't go too deep. You may never come back. And that's where you
Hmm.
got to be careful. And I tell people this all the time. You can play with the mind. We can go into all these alternative states. But like, if you're under the blanket and you trip for 5, 8 hours, whatever, but you still come back. A lot of people don't. A lot of people get
Hmm.
messed up. Same has happened in past life regression. Same has happened in like S trainings and massive brainwashing seminars. And just like I'm sure the people who do the San Pedro, they've had a few incidences or cases where somebody got hurt, and it's
Hmm.
not their fault. You just don't know who or what you're dealing with in the group, is what's
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
given. But you're strong enough. I think you're ready for past life regression. And then you would have a whole nother chapter of information that says that's why this happened, that happened, she, he, him, it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
boom, it integrates. I think that's your next step.
Yeah. That
That's
sounds
just my
super cool.
opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah,
For sure.
and it'll explain why you've got all of this, but I definitely have Native American kind of if you wanna say Indian, I wouldn't say Indian as much as Native American. You probably have an affinity towards the Civil War, 'cause I think you were part of the Civil War as a healer, not just a soldier, but I think you were healing people during the war. So you've got this kind of, passion to heal, but it's the method in which you communicate your information to the people. You're not the practitioner per se in a clinic. You give it
Yeah.
spiritually and emotionally. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. It just, when I channel stuff, it comes out because I can't help it. It's just, I can't turn it off. But let's go to Chucky for a moment.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Talk about Chucky.
Yeah. He's amazing.
Can you get him?
I don't know where he is right now. So no,
Chucky!
no. He may show up. It's funny how he shows up during conversations like this. Yeah, it's uncanny. Um, he's amazing. We met in Marin in Northern California,
Mhm.
and my wife wanted to get me a little cat for my birthday because my wish was I'm missing cat energy, and I just need that. And she calls me up one day at work. She said they wouldn't let me bring a cat home. And I thought, oh, I said, that's terrible. And I thought, excellent, because I wanted to pick, right. I wanted to go pick out who's going to come live with us.
Right?
And we go in there, and he was the first and he was the last one that I saw. I walked by his little cage, and his paw sticking out, and he's
They
just
choose
grabbing
us.
at me. Yeah. And I grabbed his paw, shook it. He didn't pull it back. And I said, I would like to see this one. And we went home with Chucky, and we went home with Ninja.
I love that. So how long have you had Chucky that you started all this work and communicating? Does he tell you how much he's grateful for you rescuing him and loving you? And
13 years. He doesn't. The way that it's been told to me, and it makes sense, is he took me on as an assignment. Okay.
oh, that's
And
interesting.
yeah, and he's here to open up the world a little bit, and in this respect that we're talking about. And he really serves as a wonderful correcting agent for me. Uh, like
He
there was
centers you and he gives you a lot of feline love that you need.
yeah,
That
yeah,
that love and those purrs will warm you after you've had a stressful day. He'll let you know it's okay,
yeah.
dude. It's
That's right.
okay.
Yeah. I mean, he's and he and I hear him. I hear him quite frequently. I mean, there's the first time that I heard him, I had friends over. I think it was last July, and my friend's wife is sitting on the couch with Chucky, and she said, I brought some incense for you guys. I heard you like incense. Fantastic. Thank you. And I said, I'm going to light it on the table, and that will keep Chucky off of it. Very
He
soon after
loved it.
that, yeah, hated it. Hate that I said that. And he starts hissing for no good reason. He's hissed. I can't tell you how many times, just like less than a handful of times I've heard this little cat hiss, and he's hissing now. He's sitting there next to this young lady, and he's just hissing at her. And I go, I don't know what's happening. Like, let's just give him some space. He'll be okay, because he typically is, but I don't know what happened. And that night, as I was about to go to sleep, I said, I'm gonna try to tune into him and see what's it all about. And as soon as my head hit the pillow and I was out, I got woken up by him saying, "Who does she think she is?" And I was like, "Oh, wow. Okay, Chucky. So you and I have had this conversation multiple times. You know that I don't like you on the table. She could care less. This is not about her. She didn't get the incense to keep you off the table. That was my idea. Like, this has nothing to do with her." So that was the first time that I heard him from, and that was the personality of Chucky, right? Then there's
Yeah,
the higher level Chucky who shows
yeah.
up frequently for the corrections for me. And here's a simple example. I was in my little space doing my meditation one morning, and I'm just sitting down and petting him, and delaying what I thought was the meditation. And then I got serious, right? I got the serious look on my face, and I thought, okay, and I'm thinking this, okay, buddy, now we need to meditate. And what I got back was, but this is the meditation. Oh, got it. Okay, thanks. So it's just us spending the time that we're spending together in that moment. How we were
Yes,
spending it was at that point
that's
the
what's
meditation.
important. It's like with
Y-
the plant, with an animal, with your people.
Yeah,
We don't have to be in the lotus position, and we don't have to be on the beach or in the meditation room, just sit and like go for 20 minutes or 3 hours in an ashram. You don't. You can meditate, and it comes in different forms. As long as you know, talking to God is prayer, and meditation is listening. It's simple. You don't have to have this huge dissertation. It's just like, okay, what am I supposed to know? Boom, you're going to get an answer within 3 hours or 3 days. It never fails, but it always comes. So I don't encourage my patients and clients that want to know about meditation. I say, well, this is how I do it. This is what I think might work for you, and leave it up to them, because people struggle trying to quiet the mind. And it's not that difficult when you just understand, ask, receive. There's your situation. There's your answer. We've got about 5 minutes left in the show today.
Yeah.
It went really fast. It always does when it's topical like this. But what would you like to close the show with? What would you like people to know? Because you're going to get a link and pass it out to people anyway, whatever you want. So what's your message? What's your final insightful statement?
Yeah, I'd say, and I think this would be important for me to hear 20 years ago, right? That's where I come from, is, who would that person, what message would they need? Would it be helpful? And the message is, this happens, this version, this thing can happen for everyone. It's just a version of it that can happen for you. And what it really comes down to, at least for me, and I think it applies to a lot of people, is committing to it. And that comes in a variety of forms. It's believing in it. It's carving out a space for, at least for me, for the meditation every morning. That is my practice. I need to do that. It's putting yourself in the right situations. It's being very intentional about growing this thing you have. You can't just be a little kid saying, you know what I want to do? I want to be a professional baseball player, and never get up to bat. Like, if you want to do, right, you got to get up to bat. You got to swing. You got to strike out. You need to do it.
Action has to follow the words. Otherwise, well, I'm not successful, or it never happened. Well, what'd you do to make it happen? Or, or when the guys call, they say, I really love this girl. Why are you chasing her? Are you going after her? No, I'm a little shy. Well, then how do you expect her to know how you feel?
That's right.
Or, I really want to take this vacation. I personally was just up in Alaska a few months ago. I wanted to see the Northern Lights, which happened to hit the mainland recently. But I had the brochure on my floor by my desk for months. I thought, Fairbanks, go up north. And I finally just booked the flight and went. It's like, what am I waiting for? You just do it. Life is short. Life goes very fast. And the longer we procrastinate, then you look back, go, uh-oh. So this is the now. We have the now. But what you and I do is to help people appreciate their now and take advantage of their moments to expand who they are on the human potential level. And that's what's so beautiful about it. I want to thank you for joining me today, Nick. Again, give your website and phone number or whatever so people can connect with you.
Yeah, Nick Musica, NickMusica.com. You can reach out to me there. If you're on Instagram, it is My Cat Schooled Me. I think I have 2
I love that. I'll find it.
Yeah, my cat schooled me on Instagram. 2 whole posts there, but it'll be populated very shortly. But you can connect with me there. I'd love to connect with you and your animals. It's a hoot.
It is. It's a gift, and it's wonderful. I want to thank you for taking the time today. Stay backstage, because Rebel's going to put you there, and I'll come back to you in a moment. Let me close the show. It's been great having you. My name's Dr. Linda Salvin. And again, if you would like to get more information, you can go to my website at lindasalvin.com or activating Dr. Linda Salvin. We're doing Dr. Linda Radio is being expanded, not just for the audio, but we're making a mirror of the site. You can listen to this on Facebook, YouTube. We're on the 100 platforms. If you want more information on Nick, listen to the end of the show over and over again, and you'll have all his contact information. Tomorrow, I am going to be with Charlotte Kosa, who is a paranormal specialist, who's been on the show with me many times. I've done her show, and we're going to entertain you. And then next week, you've got a few, and then I'm out of town. But Charlotte, I think, is going to take over my show for a few days while I'm at a radio convention. So I am Dr. Linda Salvin. This is the Psychic Solutions Podcast. I hope you have a nice day or evening, whatever time you're listening to us, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed Dr. Linda Salvin's Psychic Solutions Podcast. You can reach Dr. Linda at 888-509-1077 or at lindasalvin.com. Need a breakthrough of your own? Ready for answers or insights nobody else has? Reserve your own one-on-one in-person chat. Dr. Linda isn't just for other people. Dr. Linda gets results for you. And it's easy. Contact details are on screen now. Just click on lindasalvin.com or call toll-free 888-509-1077. That's lindasalvin.com or toll-free at 888-509-1077.